everybody. I hope we make the most of your time and make it a useful session for everyone involved. Today, as Jules mentioned, we will be touching the subject of writing better proposals to secure better funding. A little bit about MZN and what we do. We are a social enterprise who works with NGOs all over the world to provide assistance towards securing better funding and more variety of funding, helping NGOs to operate better, to improve their systems and strategies with regards to achieving their goals and priorities more effectively and efficiently. I myself am joining you from Berlin, Germany. I'm originally from Turkey, and I work as a consultant with MZN, focusing on business development and funding, fundraising issues. Um, to kick it off, we are starting with some keywords. These keywords are gathered through a number of consultations and workshops we have conducted with a variety of NGOs over the years. And the key question was, what do you find challenging when writing a proposal? And also, what is important to succeed when you want to prepare a strong proposal? The majority of the answers gathered around the go no go decision, the time limitations, the lack of clarity of scope when there's a specific guidelines or specific TOR published by a donor. There are sometimes problems with regards to co-funding requirements or establishing consortiums. If it is a new program design or if we are dealing with a new donor, then these can also become challenges in our proposal writing process. Some other words were the preparation of logical framework, the resistance towards teamwork when working on proposals, the balancing and measuring return on investment when we are trying to understand the value for money of all our efforts and intervention plans. Sometimes the struggle can be around the monitoring and evaluation framework or understanding clearly the expectations of the donor or the program ahead. Please take a minute to make note of your keywords or key phrases, the challenges that come to your mind when you think about writing proposals. And when we are at the Q&A session, maybe we can find time to go through them a little bit. The idea of proposal development sometimes, unfortunately, is focused only on the writing and submission of a proposal, which we find is a mistake. We need to have a more holistic approach when it comes to proposal preparation, and therefore we propose the 6 P's. Prior proper preparation prevents poor performance. In other words, the worst proposal is always the one you didn't know about before publication. What does this mean? Most of our organizations try to have active pipeline management. In other words, we try to gather intelligence about upcoming or expected tenders or grant programs before the donor publishes information or guidelines with specific deadlines. How does this help us? Um, Most of the time, this provides us the opportunity to familiarize ourselves with the expectations, the strategies, and the priorities of a potential donor. On the other hand, it gives us the opportunity to get a feeling about the budget envelope that would go with a prospective program. So, in some sense, it provides us the opportunity to make a preliminary no go decision on whether we would like to pursue an opportunity with this prospective donor or not. When we have prior preparation, then it minimizes the effort we will have to use during the implementation of a project, of writing a proposal. Some top tips with regards to writing proposals. The number one is, as just expressed, to prepare ahead, knowing about the call before it's released and preparing beforehand. And proactive funding portfolios, which are based on research and engagement. In other words, we need to invest in time and effort to make sure that we are aware of the potential opportunities that may be of interest to our organization. Then number three, as soon as we know about an opportunity, make good and fast go, no go decision. This needs to be pretty structured, straightforward, and as fast paced as possible. On number four, it is a key factor to always keep in mind that proposal writing is a team effort. It requires a whole of the organization approach with one single lead person to monitor and be the key responsible for the overall management. Then it's always the budget. No matter how good your technical proposal is, if you do not prepare a realistic and sustainable budget which reflects the same story as your proposal, then you will not be scoring many points. A good budget is half the battle, and this is important to remember. And on number 7 of the top tips, we remind you about the templates, investing in templates and doing this early. This can go in two ways. You can invest in your own templates so that you have draft proposals and draft concept notes ready, which would just need to be rewritten or reshaped when you are welcoming a new donors program. Or on the other hand, you can also do your research, familiarize yourself with the templates of the donor, so it saves you time during the application process. Moving on to decision making, we always recommend that every proposal requires have one decision maker. So yes, it is a teamwork effort, and it should a whole proposal responsibility. The tasks should not be completed just by one person. But on the other hand, we require one person to have the overall leadership and strategic direction for the proposal, a person who appoints the creation resources and identifies the roles, gives the task and responsibilities to the team members. And this person also makes the final decision on the design and the budget. So we can also think of this person as the responsible for quality control at the end of the phase. And as number 4 shows, this person is also accountable for quality and on-time delivery. In some aspects, we can think about the decision maker as the project manager during the proposal preparation process. Moving on to the whole of organization approach to proposal writing, we need to think about a number of factors. The first thing is making sure there's an active flow of information between team members. We need to make sure that everyone in our group knows who is in charge, who is responsible of what the deadlines are, and what is the task at hand. On a further note, we need to assess carefully the alignment of the donors' objectives with our organizational priorities. Does the proposal take our organization one step closer to our organization's long-term goals? In other words, when we implement this proposed intervention, is this going to serve the strategic priorities, objectives, the mission and vision of our organization? If the answer is yes, please go ahead and submit that project. If the answer is no, why are you spending time and effort? Why are you spending your resources on a proposal that will not aid your organization strategies? And once again, we see the budget appearing in the proposal writing process. It's very much key to start the budget process early, prepare a clear budget, and make sure that it tells the same story as your narrative. All of this directed by the decision maker will be a directed team effort. When we are writing our proposal, it's quite important that the narrative is inspirational and it needs to be very clear. We need to stay away from the mumbo jumbo. We need to make sure that our narrative is not swamped with terminology or the lingo we use in international development. We need to make sure that the language we are using is in alignment with the donor's language, which we can see in the either the terms of reference or their guidelines or their annual reports. And as a key decision, we have to keep it simple. As you can see in the red highlighted section, when we write our proposal, we need to think, will a 10-year-old understand this? The reason we are taking this as a basis is the notion that when an evaluator reads our proposal, we should always keep in mind that the person who reads it knows nothing about our organization and maybe is not familiar with the sector, is not familiar with the need for development. Therefore, we need to take the evaluator, the reader, by the hand and take them step by step through our proposal. A trick in doing this is creating our project summary by using a single page and dividing into 4 sections. A quarter of the section would be dedicated to the situation or problem analysis, whereas the other quarter would identify the targets we are aiming for, followed by another quarter focusing on the action you will do, which will be our activities, and then focusing the final quarter on the results we aim to generate. So using the STAR approach, we can use the 100% and then make sure we can summarize everything with as much clear language as possible. One thing to keep in mind with regards to proposal development, that this is not a short race, but indeed it's a marathon, because you're not just going to submit one proposal per year. You will be writing many proposals to a variety of donors on a number of different subjects. Therefore, you need to use your energy effectively and efficiently. One tip can be not to just think each of them as one proposal, but use one proposal to feed more proposals when necessary and when possible. And another key factor is not to overpromise on the activities you are designing, not to overpromise on how you're going to use the budget that will match those activities. Uh, Increasingly, in the last couple of years, the donors have made it quite clear that they would like to see value for money in the technical proposal as well as the budget. So it includes explaining clearly how your costs and the methods you have chosen to implement are differentiating from other organizations, and how they show that the funding is going to be worth the time and the resources. On final note with this topic is to be very familiar with the expectations of the donor. Be ready to negotiate and know that you do not always have to agree on the conditions or the terms set by the donor if it does damage your organization. Sometimes unrealistic donor expectations can be, for example, stringent on the overhead prices, or maybe very limiting with regards to how you use the available funds. And if this is damaging for your organization, both technically and financially, it might be a reason to consider whether this donor is the correct match for you. I believe this cycle is a very familiar cycle for all of you, and the proposal development process, starting with the problem statement, leading to the rationale and justification of that problem statement, which is followed by identifying the project goal and objectives. The project goal and objectives lead us to our strategy and activities, in where we provide detailed information about our intervention methodology and why we are going to implement the selected set of activities. And all our activities have results. So in the results section, we provide information about the expected impact, what the specific outputs are, and what the expected outcomes would be, probably in the medium to long term of the project life cycle. All in all, a proposal is not complete unless it has a budget, a matching budget. Therefore, as soon as we have our project rationale and we have a good idea about the activities we are going to implement, it is good time to start drafting our budget, making sure that it matches 100% with the story of the narrative. We would very much like to remind once again, and not to leave the budget preparation to the last minute. We need to plan enough time to prepare a very detailed budget, making sure that none of the activities or the requirements of the project are left out, making sure that our calculations are correct, making Excel work for us, making sure that our um, calculations and the budgeting emphasizes what is important, and also that we stay within the guidelines. For example, the budget limitations, the restrictions on percentages, and the details identified in the terms of reference or the guidelines. We do not want to give too much detail on the budget, but it needs to be giving enough information so that someone who does not have access to our narrative proposal can understand a good amount of what the project is about by looking at the budget. Not just about how much money is required, but what that money is going to be used for and whether it makes sense or not. And this can also only be ensured by creating a balance between the budget and the desired impact. So we have identified 10 key questions which we believe a strong proposal should clearly answer. And if you have any additional questions that you think should be among these 10 or added to these 10, please feel free to share them in the chat or later on during the Q&A. First of all, a strong proposal should clearly answer how many beneficiaries are going to be affected by our proposal, by our project. How many of them are primary beneficiaries? How many of them are secondary beneficiaries? And what kind of demographics are we looking into? Is there a gender balance in our beneficiary group? Are we trying to target a social inclusion, or is our identification system addressing some structured methodology? Our proposal needs to clearly answer how we see the beneficiaries and how we identify them. Furthermore, the proposal needs to answer what the overall aims of our organization is and how it fits within the context of the project. In other words, we need to make it very clear that our organization is the perfect fit to implement this project because, and that because comes from our experience in the field, our experience in the sector, our previous experiences implementing similar projects. Thinking from a donor's perspective, this is pretty critical because it provides the information that your organization is eligible to implement the proposed project. It has enough experience in the area and is not new to the subject. One of the other questions that made their way to the top 10 is how your project fits in with the context. So your situational analysis would give a background on the current situation and how your project complements what is going on, how it fits with the general picture. Are you working with other organizations? Are you collaborating with government? Are you making sure that the governmental strategies or SDGs or European Union policies are being addressed and identified in your proposal and your proposed activities? It's quite key to remember that complementary actions are often well received so that they show um, understanding of the current situation and homework well done. Another question we need to ask is about the relevance of the project to the funding criteria and policies. This is set when we do a good detailed read of the guidelines of the donor, when we are very well versed with the terms of reference, and when we make sure that the expectations of the donor with regards to the program objectives are in alignment with our project's identified objectives and policies. Then we move on to questioning the project details. Do we have smart outcomes? Are they sustainable? Are they measurable? Are they possible to attain within the project life cycle? So when we think about the aims of our project, do they tick all the letters of the SMART? Furthermore, what are the key activities and the timeline? Do they match? Do they make sense? Is it possible to, if it's a 12-month project, is it possible to implement all those activities within the time span of 12 months? Or are we over promising? We need to ask these questions and make sure that when an evaluator looks at the activities and the timeline, they see it has been properly balanced. On the note of identifying costs and preparing a budget, we need to make sure that our proposal clearly answers how much funding is required and for what. So if we are asking for 500,000 euros for a 2-year project, and more than 30% is on administrative costs, then the donor would, raise their eyebrows to identify how much of these funds are exactly going to the exact implementation, to the field, to the beneficiaries. Which brings us to the question of whether it will be value for money. And then with regards to using our templates, if we are using our own templates or we are using the donor templates, are we looking at line budgets or activity budgets? We talk a lot more about budgeting for proposals in our other webinars, so I would suggest you to keep an eye out on those as well. One very critical part of all projects is monitoring and evaluation, and sometimes accountability and learning is added to those as well. Does our proposal clearly identify how we plan to monitor our project, how we plan to monitor in terms of the outcomes and the processes? So at the end of the day, we have credible, valuable data for the evaluation procedures. And last but not least, we have the sustainability issue. What happens when the funding ends? Most of the donors, especially lately in an increasing amount, want to know that you understand that this is a limited intervention and the funding will at some stage come to an end. Do you have a implementation sustainability strategy? Do you have an exit strategy? Are you planning to find additional funds to continue the activity? Or are you going to integrate local ownership so that local governments or local organizations get ownership of the project and continue afterwards with different funds? Or are you going to just say, sorry, funding is over and goodbye? And your plan on such sustainability needs to be clarified in your proposal as well. So these were our 10 questions we believe all strong proposals should clearly answer. And I'm looking forward to hearing your questions on those as well. In our short appendix, we want to give a few tips with regards to decision making on whether to pursue an opportunity or not in the go, no go decision process. And the key question we need to ask at the first stage is, does this opportunity fit our organization and funding strategy? Is there good enough alignment? We are not looking for 100% alignment, but 75% is good. Less than 75% is open to discussion. Less than 50%, your time is too valuable. Making sure that we read the fine print and read between the lines to make sure that we are eligible, we are proposing eligible activities, so on and so forth. Keep asking the important questions, such as what is the probability of us getting this grant? So, in other words, what is the competition like? Who are we bidding against? And is it probable that, we can win? What would it take us? What would it take for us to win? Do we have the adequate resources to prepare all of this? So, we need to go through these questions in order to give a healthy go or no go decision. And once again, going full circle, we would like to remind you that it is very, very important to be ready behind the scenes, to have a proactive management of our funding portfolio and our pipeline, and not to leave our organization to the mercy of the donors. So we widen our horizons and have multiple opportunities, and manage our pipeline before an opportunity opens up, so that we are ready with our ideas, concept notes, draft budgets, and more to share. I would like to give a quick reminder of how MZN supports its current partner NGOs. Especially for the funding support, we identify new opportunities that are in alignment with their strategies and priorities, and provide them with this information. If you would like to learn more about that, please do not hesitate to contact us afterwards. And on to you, Jules.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that wonderful webinar, Hande. I think everyone has learned a lot. We just wanted to let everyone know about our training courses. We have Right Winning Proposals, NGO Financial Sustainability, and another Right Winning Proposal Budgets and Monitor Project Budgets. These are highly subscribed, and we would love to invite you to sign up with your organization. We're also able to join you in your country, bring our team over, and run specialized trainings for your organization. So please do get in touch with us about these. As you can see, it's all on our website under our training courses platform. Please take note, read, sign up, register, and let us help your organization. Do you mind? Yeah. And then just so we have our upcoming webinars. There are only a few left for the rest of the year. I can't believe it's nearly the end of the year.
It's amazing.
I know. We have a brand new webinar on Monday about should this project be an investment. So if you log on to our website under webinars, you will see what this is all about. And then we have the NGO of the future is agile, entrepreneurial, and digital. And 5 ways to build and lead an NGO in the new normal, how to manage yourself better. So please do register on our website and join us in the next webinars.
And now we can spare some time for, especially if anyone wants to share additional comments, or they have any more questions to add to the top 10 questions we have identified, as well as any inquiries with regards to the webinar.
Great. Thanks, Hande. Please do write your questions in the Q&A box. And I do see, Fanny, you've asked whether the slides will be shared. Yes, they will be shared post-webinar. You will get an email. I'm going to kick off with our first question from Alphas. I believe that the proposal, also including a summary of key assumptions, risks, and mitigation measures, this should be included as part of the logical framework.
So very much true, Alphas. Thank you for sharing this insight as well. It is very important to identify the current situation, as well as how it would affect our intervention strategy. We need to be aware of what kind of risks and assumptions are at possibility, and also how we would mitigate them. So it just not stop with identifying the risks and assumptions, but we are also expected to identify solutions to overcome any challenges during the implementation of our programs.
Great, thanks, Hande. A question, how can you better find opportunities before they are published to have enough time to do background research?
You can familiarize yourself with donors who are funding similar programs and projects. So, what many of the organizations do, and some of them we assist in doing, is working on active living donor maps. So you identify different types of donor, institutional donors, foundations, even private donors who have the same strategies or priorities, who fund the region you're working in, who fund the sectors or the teams you are working on, and you study their funding cycles. You learn about their funding habits, and you engage with them either directly or indirectly through email, through personal visits, through meeting them in conferences or events or seminars, and creating that engagement on a professional level, and being on, tracking them so that you are ready with a potential concept note or a proposal when it is time for their funding cycle.
Great, thanks, Hande. Is there any scientific way to identify the go, no go? If the organization is keen for almost any fund, shall we accept a go, even if our chance of winning is low, to give it a try?
Sometimes if it is a strategic project, so if you implementing this project creates additional opportunities for your organization, it may be worth taking putting in the time and effort. On the other hand, sometimes your organization may have a expected lower minimum budgets. For example, you might say that we are not going to bid for projects under 300,000. However, you would see a 150,000 euro project, and it's with a donor you have not worked with before, but you were wishing to work with that donor. So, you forget about your 300,000 barrier and go for it. So it depends, and it needs to be decided on a case by case basis.
Great, thanks, Hande. Rajratan has asked, most of the times various donors have shortlisted the countries or even implementation partners. So is there any specific website where to search for upcoming opportunities that we can apply for?
Well, apart from the typical platforms such as DevX and Funds for NGOs and the UN partner portal, our suggestion is to have the donors' own websites in your Chrome tab or whichever one you are using. Have them in your tabs and visit them regularly to see, one, whether they have issued any new announcements, and two, whether they are making any changes to their strategies, there any updates, and whether it is possible for you to see them somewhere soon in person.
Great, thank you. Sophie's also asked a similar question. I'm just going to ask it slightly different. Are there any specific sites for finding the available grants ahead of releases?
Yes, again, ahead of releases would require your additional research so that you understand, for example, the last couple of years, when did this donor go out for funding? So when were the funding cycles active and when were they closed? This gives you an indication of when to expect the next cycle to come.
Great, thank you. Bassem has asked, should we link each activity in the proposal with the proposal budget? I mean, to be charged on the budget. Maybe some activities are covered from other donors.
If your budget or if your project is going to be funded by multiple donors, it's important to have one, big budget which shows everything. And when you want to be informing to the donor in question, identify as additional funding. So they know that this activity is going to take place as part of the project, and they also know that you won't be funding it from your own resources or from this project specific project's resources, but there is funding available. Otherwise, it might be misread as you have written an activity but haven't costed for it.
Thank you. Locus asked, some donors would want your organization to have some funds and how you successfully implement and show how you have successfully implemented a project. How can a beginner handle such a situation?
Partnerships. The answer to this question is, especially for NGOs who are just getting their feet in the water, is to establish partnerships with other organizations. These can be other NGOs, these can be other local organizations. But through partnerships, you gain the track record, and after a while, you can also be the lead applicant in your proposals as well.
Thank you. Can you expand on not writing one proposal when you can write 10, as there are low success rate for generic proposals?
Yeah, we are not talking about generic proposals. Thank you for pointing that out. Maybe we should make it clearer in our upcoming webinars. We are talking about using that material to expand your way of thinking. So each program, each terms of reference is specified on a theme or a sector. But the way of thinking, you can apply that methodology or intervention logic to different sectors as well. So if you are an organization focusing on multiple sectors such as education, health, and livelihoods, you can take the same methodology and create 3 projects at the same time. I hope that makes sense.
Thank you. Is it best to present a concept note first once you have researched a donor prior to waiting for a call for proposals?
Some donors like that. Some donors are open to direct engagement. And for example, let's give the example of Bosch Foundation. They accept concept notes, project ideas through their portal, and they accept it on a rolling basis. So there's not a specific deadline for submissions. And they read about your project idea, they go through your concept note and decide whether it is of interest and in alignment with their priorities. And then you go to the next step of discussing it and preparing a full-on proposal. Some donors just want, how the structure is detailed on their guidelines or on their websites. So again, the answer to this question depends on familiarizing yourself with your ideal donors.
Great, thank you. There have been 1 or 2 questions in the chat. We do always request for you to please put the questions in the Q&A. We're just going to have time for 2 more questions, and then it is time for us to go. So just one question from Jonathan. Given that time to develop a project can be limited, what should we present or prioritize in a needs assessment?
First of all, the reason you are proposing these projects is to create impact and to benefit the target groups, target audiences in the selected theme or the sector. So the main thing you are going to show is how it relates to their needs and how it answers the needs of your target audience. And then number two, how it matches with the expectations or the desired impact of the donor. So if you know don't have any space and it's really a very strict word limitation, you better stick to these two.
Great, thank you. And then I'm just going to ask one more question for you to answer. What types of annexures are required for a good proposal?
If the donor is allowing for additional annex documents, then maybe you can think of a monitoring and evaluation plan and a project timeline with a good breakdown, and also your logical framework, which shows both the objectives, outcomes, and risks, assumptions, and mitigation techniques.
Thank you so much, Hande. Thank you everyone for joining us today. It's been a pleasure having you all here. Thank you for all your insights, Hande, and for giving everyone such a good webinar.
I hope it's been helpful and looking forward to seeing people soon.
Bye.
Bye.